Hey guys, just wanted to go through something that showed up on my email today, and recreational flyers, you are not going to want to miss this. Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate it. It's good to see you. So something showed up in my email today that I wanted to share with you because it is time sensitive. It is an advisory from the FAA regarding recreational flying. So what the FAA did is that they kind of sneaky in a way in that they said recreational flyers comply with these rules that are on the website, right? But item number 2 says that you must also follow, in addition to those rules, CBO guidelines. And again, I talked about that in the trust test. So if you haven't already, make sure you bookmark that. I'll put that link up here so that you can go ahead and view that one as well, because I'll talk more about the CBO. But what that does is it says, okay, you need to follow these guidelines. You need to be able to state which CBO you are following if ever approached by FAA or law enforcement, for instance. What this circular does is outlines 2 potential CBOs, what rules that they are going to have to comply with or what they're going to have to put in their guidelines so the FAA will accept them. But if you want to be an accepted CBO, according to the FAA, you're likely going to have to comply with all of these. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run through this circular, and I'm only going to hit a few of the high points. I will leave a link in the description for this entire document because, of course, we want to comment on it. So I want you guys to review it because it's really important for a recreational pilot's future. So I'm only going to hit a few of the highlights, and then I'm going to go right to the CBO section because this is where I think they're really trying to slip some sneaky stuff in, because all this stuff is going to be buried under this one number 2 rule that just says, oh, follow the guidelines of a CBO organization. And I think unless you understand it, how restrictive that can be, I think you're going to be really in trouble. So first thing is we're just going to jump to one thing that is, I think they've really outlined well, which they've never really done before. And they specifically mention FPV before they get to the CBO section. And that's in the 2.2.3.1 section here. And it talks about a visual observer is necessary if the recreational flyer wants to fly first person view, FPV device. Then they further discuss what FPV is. And again, this is something that I don't think they've done before, is talk specifically about, like it says, FPV devices are goggle-like viewing devices that the flyer wears, allowing the flyer to see the flight from the perspective of the camera mounted on the UA. These FPV devices often provide a restricted view of the surrounding area. If the recreational flyer uses the assistance of a visual observer for the operation, the visual observer must be co-located with the recreational flyer, which means that the visual observer must be standing close enough to the recreational flyer to be able to communicate directly with him or her without the use of technological assistance, without creating a distraction. Whew. So what this is doing is calling out the FPV pilots specifically, saying that yes, you do need a visual observer. The FPV view is not going to cut it. And that visual observer must be close enough to talk to you without any devices. So no walkie-talkies, anything like that, no phone connection. You must be able to be co-located with that FPV pilot. So I think this is the first time that they're specifically calling out the FPVs and what it is with regards to a visual observer. So now down in the CBO section, we're going to go down to where it says general safety measures and practices. And the first one they talk about is adequate protections and mitigations to prevent the UAS from causing harm to any person. The thing I want to point out here, where it says safe practices should include restrictions on flying over people and establishing buffer areas between aircraft's planned flight path and any people in the area. So what they're talking about here is saying restrict flights over people. There was a rule that came out that talked about that they were going to be allowing that under certain conditions, but it sounds like they want the CBO to say restrict the recreational pilot from doing that. Now, next one we're going to look at is number 4, pre-flight safety. And in here they talk about pre-flight safety includes ensuring that the aircraft, recreational flyer, environment, and all location are appropriate for flight. Mitigate hazards guidelines should include, appropriate to the needs of the CBO, a pre-flight assessment, flight planning, and hazard identification techniques and scanning techniques for aircraft and other people entering the area. Pre-flight assessment and inspection checklist provides a detailed example of pre-flight checklist that CBOs may be able to adapt for their particular needs. Now this pre-flight checklist is something that had been only required of 107 pilots. Now they're lumping it into the recreational pilots. So number 6 then is post-flight safety. Guidelines for post-flight inspection should include encouraging recreational flyers to review the flight to determine whether any unplanned events occurred that presented a risk to the operation. Now again, I think this is going to be another checklist after the flight to find out if anything went wrong and log all this stuff. So another piece of paperwork for you to log. Next section down talks about procedures for UAS maintenance, inspections, and minimum conditions for safe operation. Now again, the 107 pilot needs to do this and have a log that tells when you've checked your propellers, the batteries, any maintenance you've done on it, any inspections you've done through the course of the flights, and you have to log that for every flight. Again, now this is one of those things that my guess is there's going to be some kind of a checklist they expect you to do. And again, it lends itself more towards being closer to 107 than a recreational pilot. So further down on the list, they talk about safety event reporting procedures. Again, more reporting. And it says here, CBO should consider including a safety event reporting requirement for recreational flyers. Required reporting. Suggested criteria for triggering safety event reports includes injuries, fair enough, property damage, fair enough, loss of control of UAS due to sustained or unexpected loss of command and control link, loss of navigation, ever break a cable, ground control station malfunctions, functional failures of the UA, recreational flyer errors, power failures, or loss of propulsion. So what this means as a recreational flyer is, let's say you take your drone out and you want to fly in your backyard and take some video of the kids swimming in the pool. And something happens where you lose communication and it comes and it lands, or you get an intermittent signal, or you have a power failure and the thing flops to the ground. You will be required, if this goes through, to report this to the CBO, who will then accumulate it and report it to the FAA. That'll be a requirement. So one of the interesting items here is recreational flyer errors. Who determines what's an error? Maybe if you're still learning to fly as a recreational pilot and you pitched right when you didn't expect to, and you ran into the side of the house and the Mini fell to the ground. That's an error that you're supposed to then, if these guidelines go through, report to the CBO officially, and then the CBO will likely accumulate and report those to the FAA. Every time you make an error, you're supposed to report yourself. That's a little bit overreach, I think. So I'm not going to go through every item in here, but as you guys can see but from the things that I highlighted, there's kind of some disturbing stuff in here in the direction that the FAA is trying to take recreational pilots. Now take the time to go comment. Now we had the same kind of comment thing when we had the MPRM for the remote ID, but this is a little different. But again, make your voice heard for recreational pilots, because I think this is probably overreach in my opinion, but at least do what you can. So you're going to reach this comment section by going here to this link. It will pop up a form that you can go ahead and fill in all your information in your comments. And then don't forget that there's a section here that you can click submit. So go ahead and submit your comments. I think it's important that they hear from as many recreational pilots as they can. I think the FAA has kind of deviated a little bit from the essence of what a recreational flyer is, just to go out and have fun. That's kind of the point, right? Is to go out and have fun and not have to worry about regulations and checklists and inspections and reporting. That's kind of what would happen if you're a licensed pilot, a licensed 107 pilot, for instance. So I think they've kind of went off astray. So just try to nudge them a little bit and let them know your thoughts to make sure that they know what you're thinking. So lastly, make sure you click that like button if you found something of use or learned something you didn't know before. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to help you guys understand what the FAA is doing so that you can at least have your voice heard. And with that, till next time and next video, good flying.